Yeah, we're on. I'd like to call this meeting of the Norfolk Board of Health to order. It is October 22nd, 2019 at 7 p.m. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. It is a variance hearing for a septic system upgrade at 12 Lakeshore Drive. And the representing engineer is GLM Engineering. I have a little preamble to read, which is going to sound familiar to many. A variance hearing from Board of Health Regulations is called to order for 12 Lakeshore Drive. It is my duty to inform you that you'll have to provide the board with data to support your request for a waiver of Board of Health Regulations, and that if you do not receive the waiver, it will do you manifest injustice. You've also got to show that what you intend to do is environmentally acceptable. So, may we begin?
Wait, is this for all of us?
Well, I got more.
And I'll pass that one over. I have one.
We have a microphone? Yeah, one right there. All right.
I assume it's on. For the record, Rob Truax of GLM Engineering Consultants. So we're here this evening to represent the applicant, which is the owner of 12 Lakeshore Drive, that being Debbie Shortman. And we're here to request a waiver, variance, I guess you'd call it, under the local upgrade approval. And we're requesting an approval to allow a septic system leaching field to be within 81 feet of an existing private well source. So if you look up on the thing here, this is the site that's there today. It's a 50-foot wide building lot. It's fronts on Lakeshore Drive. It's relatively flat up till you get to the existing garage, and then it drops down, about 15, 20 feet, and then right behind the house is Popular Pond, which if any of you are familiar with the pond, this is one of the old houses that sits on the pond. It's a very small house, obviously, sitting right down at the bottom of the hill. There's an existing cesspool off to the side of the house right here. It's currently in failure. And what we're proposing to do is take the existing cesspool, cave it in, crush it, fill it with gravel, and then put a pump so we can eject up to the front yard, which is at the top of the hill, to a septic tank, and then go out to a leaching field in the front area. We've done soil testing in the area. We did not hit groundwater. We got down about 12 feet with the soil testing. If you're familiar with the area, it's all gravel, good sands and gravels in the area. It's highly likely that the water table is down around the elevation of the pond, which is down, about 20 feet from the hill. And there's no other area within the area of the pond to even put a septic system on the lot other than this front area. We are pumping it up, so I do believe that we may need a waiver for the actual pump to be prior to the septic tank as well. I did put a note on my variances looking for any other waivers that may be necessary. But I think the big waiver and the big variance here is the request to put in a septic system less than 100 feet from a private well. There's an existing well on the Warnick property, which is on the left side of the property looking at it from the street, which is currently about 65, 70 feet from the existing cesspool. And then there's a well, and we're proposing that well to the leaching field is 82 feet. And then the well across the street at 9 Lakeshore, which is Shapiro, their well is right up beside the roadway on Lakeshore Drive, their existing private well. And we're proposing the leaching field to be 81 feet from that well. Under the local upgrade policy, for one of the hardships you should consider I'm going to give you a copy of this, under the policy is the cost of a system. You're probably familiar with the policy. And it references a rule of thumb is 10%. It's in this paragraph right there. That's the policy from DEP. I have an estimate from Jones Excavating, so Kenny Jones Corporation. I have an estimate of $35,900 to put in the system. I have the assessed value of the house, which is $256,000. That estimates approximately 14% of the value of the house. So as you can see, it's quite costly to put the system in. I did get a verbal estimate of $43,000 today before I came. I don't have that in writing tonight, so I can't provide that. I can get it at a later date. So with that, under the local approving ability within DEP, the board does have the ability to approve this waiver down to no less than 50 feet under the local approving guidelines within DEP. I'm sure you're familiar with that as well. So we're looking for a waiver to go down to 82 feet. Currently, there's a cesspool on the property that's in failure, probably discharging directly to the groundwater in the vicinity. So this would provide a greater degree of environmental protection than currently exists. It is a hardship on the people who live there. We will be providing the same degree or better degree of environmental protection with a conforming leaching field. And it does, have the separation to groundwater. It exceeds the 5 feet of separation to groundwater within that area. So you have plenty of separation and treatment prior to getting to the groundwater source. We have an existing well on the site. It's actually located, as you can see, inside the house in the basement there. And fortunately, that well is a little further away from the proposed system. That's just over 100 feet, so that does meet the requirement. And then I show all the other wells within the area, so it's really just 2 wells. I did split the difference between the 2 wells, getting the maximum separation. The leaching field is a 2-bedroom design. It's the minimum design standard. It's very small. There's 2 22-foot long trenches with crushed stone, 2 foot by 3 foot. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
Thanks, Rob. We'll ask our engineer to comment on your comments and give us a recommendation.
Yeah, it's, what recommendation's written, it's a written memo, I guess, to the Board of Health. I'm not sure if the public's seen it already, but I think they do. In that area of the town, there's a lot of concerns, lots of non-conforming, small cottages converting to year-round use. The town did put water service down there, so there is water available there. But still, if you put water along a road, you're not required to tap into it, because it's your land, and you can drink water from your land if you want to. The quality of land per house for residents is underneath the guidance of the Board of Health and also the authority of the Board of Health. The Board of Health has the authority to look at potable water, make sure it's clean for its residents, and that's the responsibility you guys hold. Real estate can change from hand to hand, so if there's one person that lives there saying, I want my well, I don't care what's in it, I'm not going to test it, I'm not going to let you know what it is, that's fine, but a transfer of property, well, that's their right, transfer of property, the local Board of Health requires a water testing for it to see how good the water is for the next person, next resident coming in, and so on and so on. But on this part of town, you're getting a lot of small lots, existing wells, existing cesspools that one time were okay, and now you're coming into the modern age, Title V, if you want to call that modern, and you need to upgrade. So now you have the cesspool and a private well, they're both non-complying in a sense of distances, and now you have to upgrade one for compliance. So now, in my opinion, is that I think as a Board of Health, we should look at the area as more of a community overview, not an individual overview, where one person has a failed cesspool and then they want to upgrade it, so they're just going to make their in compliance, and so what about everybody else? As long as mine's compliant, as long as my well is perfect, is a safe distance from wastewater. So I think it's time that in tight areas like this, when people need to upgrade their utilities or their homes, they need to upgrade it to meet compliance through portable water services and through wastewater. And on this particular lot, there are other options in this particular one. If you look at the existing conditions, the person who's upgrading it is like 25 feet to the cesspool, existing right now. Their neighbor next door, the Warnicks, are like 70 or so. And then the people across the street, Cohen, Sapero, are 100 plus. They're in compliance. They're not even being affected by this. Now the cesspool has failed, and we need, and the owners, of course, have a right, they need to upgrade it. Of course, they want to upgrade it. And now with their upgrade, they're proposing their well is perfectly 100 feet from their leaching facility. Now their water is perfectly clean. And their neighbors next door, Norfolk, is still encroaching to their wastewater, but a little farther away. And the people across the street, now they're affected by it, by 20 feet. 20 feet or so, and no one's really looking at their safety, and also there's a lot of different things you can think about, even economics on it, devalue your property and stuff. Water quality is where I'm more so looking at public health. So in cases like this, you have to start looking at it and saying, well, as a community, how are we going to be dealing with this town? We're going to just keep on allowing septic systems to encroach neighbors' wells, and so what if your well water is dirty? If it is, then you can tie into the town water, and then it's your problem. I personally don't think that's the right way to go. I did reach out to the Warnicks because they reached out to the office, and I talked to the son of Hans Warnick, and his father's older, and he would be more than happy to talk to his father to remove that existing well through town water as a possibility, and that would be one threat. And then the person who's going for the applicant upgrade, since they're upgrading it and they need to bring their system into compliance, the town water is also on Lake Shore Drive in front of their house where they can tap into it too. The people across the street, the Cohens and Shapiro, they're still living there. They upgraded their systems 2 years ago, and they met the 100-foot setback for their wells and their neighbors too, because through the permitting process, we made sure. That's why I knew where the well is. So in cases where there's no other option, you may have to encroach a well. But in cases where there are options, and I know there might be an expense to it, but we're looking for compliance, and we're the Board of Health, and that's what happens. These properties will transfer for other people and other residents in the town. And that's my feeling, and that's how the report reflected, that there were other options for the applicant to pursue for their septic upgrade. And I believe also if anybody's going to have a variance, they should also bear the consequences of the variance.
So to summarize, you're proposing, or you're suggesting that leaching field essentially move to the right, the way it's drawn up there on the wall, to provide a 100-foot separation to the folks across the street, and then make an assumption that the people who are going to be even more impacted by it at 14 Lakeshore Drive are going to be bringing in town water?
Yes, that would probably be the applicant's responsibility as an agent in reviewing this. I'm not going to, I guess, be the project manager of this, but there are other options. And there's town water as an option. The applicant could put town water in and not threaten anybody's wells and themselves. And they have to discuss it with their neighbors, if the Warnicks either do it themselves or they have someone else do it for them to eliminate their threat from their upgrade. That's a possibility also. But this office, this board here, you're the one that grants the variances. You allow the system to be 50 feet or 100 feet to these private wells. If the board felt like, no, we want portable water, safe portable water for all homes, we want no encroachments, all you have to say is no. We want a water service into that home. Or the option of an on-site leaching facility isn't available to them. There are other availabilities that they could work out, but it'd be more of an expense. So I'm talking to this board saying, in this part of town, I think some action needs to be done where some of these crowded areas should probably be worked out for the sake of the public health interests and a community sense, not an individual, where people try to push and shove and get their variances in first.
So could you just summarize the other options besides where the septic system would be right now?
All right, so one option would be to remove it from the Cohens and Shapiro's well, since it's already in compliance. Why make it non-compliance? To me, it doesn't make any sense.
So you can move it
Right now,
to the home?
right now, it's just paper. You can do anything you want with it. You can move things around.
Behind the garage.
On the site, when we were out there doing the observation holes, I was out there, and I went to Shapiro's well, and I measured out a 100-foot tape. And the 100-foot goes right in front of the garage there. And if you look at both sides of the garage, there's plenty of room for a leaching facility to be designed. It might be encroaching the side lot lines, which is a lot lesser type of a variance than it is actually threatening someone's water. You can see the bottom of the sheet there, there's dotted lines, a circular dotted line, and the other circular dotted line. Those are the 100-foot setbacks from neighboring wells. So the leaching facility on the bottom part of the applicant's lot line by the garage wouldn't be threatening to anybody's
This
quality
right
of
here.
life. Thank you, thank you. So that would be one option, but then you still have the Hardnick's well encroachment, and you still have their own well encroachment. So now they're sitting there with a design for a leaching facility where they're affecting their own well and their neighbors. The one thing about the applicant, it'd be a better situation since their well now is only 25, 27 feet to their cesspool. But still, I'm not sure what the Warnick's wellhead would be, if it'd be farther away or the same. I'm not sure. They'd have to work that out in details. But that was just one particular option you could have. Another option is have the two wells that are being threatened by the leaching facility, be abandoned and have town water serve those homes. And then the threat's gone.
And
So
who
how
pays
much?
for it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how much does that cost? Because
I don't know.
in your letter, you mentioned that, I think it's Hans, he's willing to convert, he says his father's willing to convert to town water if no cost to his father?
Correct.
No cost?
Correct.
Well, who's gonna pay for it? What
Well,
does that mean?
I'm not the accountant. I don't know. It'd have to be worked out with the applicant and the variances. It'd have to also be intertwined with this board, with its wishes.
We got an estimate of around $15,000 to tie someone into town water.
So
So
that's.
that's less expensive than the,
Well, you still have to
Oh, no,
upgrade the
so that would
septic
be on
system.
top of the cost of our system.
Sorry.
So we'd go to $50,000 in total.
So why couldn't you put the well back behind the garage? I'm not the well, the.
I mean, put the
sep-
system over in here?
The system, with,
I mean, I possibly could, and then we would probably still, like, I think what he's saying is a valid point. If we met the same setback to their well that we have now, and then we were able to give the 100 feet, I need variances, obviously, for the lot line and probably the distance to that existing garage, and squeeze something in here. I mean, that's a possibility. I would, and then we'd only need the variance for our well, as well as the neighbors.
which neighbor?
Well, that one would still need a variance for Warnick.
So the two, are they the same family? Is that the same
No,
family?
so this,
Neighbors.
that Warnick is in a butter at 14 Lake Shore. So if we were to move the system up along the garage and get 100 feet from the well across the street because they're in compliance now, I understand exactly what Wade's saying, and then we would have a waiver to this well, which may be the same distance as what they have currently now to our cesspool.
Possibly, yeah, or close.
Plus or
very close.
minus, within that same range. So we wouldn't need the waiver for the well across the street, but we would still need it for the neighbor and possibly for our own, which we're already, we're less than 30 feet from the cesspool. We're probably, we're really close, so anything would be better for our own well.
Sure, there could, and possibilities go, the two neighbors could get together and maybe share a well, pop another well in, and can have a community well. Well, that wouldn't be a community, it'd be two people sharing a well off on one of the properties with an easement, and then both their systems would be far away from the well. There's a lot of different possibilities that you could have if you just put your mind to it and think. But again, this board would probably direct that type of energy going into that by just what your wishes are.
Well, so Wayne, is it your proposal to essentially have the board convene a kind of a neighborhood meeting here to work out a plan? Because this is going to require buy-in by a lot of people.
Well, no. First of all, the Cohens and the Shapiros really don't need to be having their well threatened by someone else's leaching facility in this upgrade. So that itself, the location of the proposed leaching facility it's affecting a neighborhood which already is in compliance. So that right there should probably be eliminated because you could redesign it and keep their water safe, at least to the standards from the state. Then you have the Warnicks and the applicant, and they're already both encroaching the well itself, the septic system itself, so they can have their own discussions on what they want to do. And I'm just saying, there's numerous ways they could do it. I'm not telling them they have to do it, or we should organize it as an office, but giving the applicant direction saying, we don't want your leaching facility encroaching any neighbors that are in compliance would be a start. And they would have to redesign and come back to the board again if they have more variances or if they have no variances, if they worked it out.
Well, we're never going to have none.
What about,
Not with those size lots.
I don't know, you could possibly have none, but again, it'd be
How would
more of
you
an
do it?
expense. It'd be more of an expense Things can be more localized in the middle of the yard. You have to have water services in both homes, of course. And you can move the sewer pipe inside the building to another location, so it's coming out away from the property line.
So really, the solution is town water.
To a solution
Well, for
in
one
that,
piece of it, that's not for the septic.
yeah.
Well, to make it impossible to have any conflicts of any
Which-
sort with those kinds of lots,
Yeah.
I
Or
think town water is the only way to really solve the issues here.
town water is a very good way of solving the solution. But if people are still adamant of not going to town water, they could also share wells too.
Where would your suggestion be for a shared well for those?
I wouldn't really suggest a shared well, but that is an option, just throwing on the table, not just to, paint you guys into a corner. One of the homeowners, one of the lots would own a well, and the other one would have easement ownership to it, and they would share it. And they would share it privately. Because
Shared well with a neighbor.
What about number 8? Right now, is number 8, how far away from,
if you look at the bottom of the
Yes.
plan, you'll see a dotted circle.
That's as well.
That's their edge of the 100-foot setback from their well.
so right now, they're not,
Oh, thank you.
There it is, yeah.
Right, Fran, you see it?
They're away from it.
their
This is
well
their
is
100
away
foot.
from it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, they're safe.
So if you put the septic system behind the
This is
garage,
the
it's not
other
going to
well.
make any difference, right?
That's
If you-
correct. But it is a steep hill, so they'd have to probably step it down, but you can do that too. Or they could even straddle both sides of the garage if they needed to.
Okay.
There
Because
we-
with a pump system, you can put that leaching area anywhere, you can split it, you can split it with D-boxes, you can pressurize it. There's so many different options on engineering designing, where I'll leave it up to the applicant's professional to do it. That's not my job to do it here, but my job is to inform the Board of Health there are other options. Not to come up with the option, but there are other options than the variances that are before you tonight. That would better the residents' home and probably the area of the community in itself. I mean, that area has a lot of encroachments of wells and stuff. With a water service right in front of it. And the only reason it's there because the Board of Health allows that water quality to be pumped into those homes. This board's allowing that to happen. And this board could also say, we don't want that to happen. We want people now to start having portable water from the town, because you cannot no longer keep the safe distance of the well. And if you want it, you'd have to keep 100 feet away. If it's a transfer of property and their own well is too close to a leaching facility, the state does allow some lenience on it, on testing of the nitrogen and the other information I put into my letter. So they could keep an existing well to a leaching facility. That's allowed. But here we're talking about building a new leaching facility next to an existing well. That's a totally different animal altogether.
So how many homes are on Lake Shore Drive? I mean, it sounds like they're all going to have this problem, is what you're saying.
No, they don't, 'cause the
If they all
one-
has-
Not particularly, because the one across the street, Shapiro's and Cohen, they had their upgrade 2 years ago.
But they are going to, these were all originally cesspools?
In some cases, yeah, I would say, yes. And that's why they could fit them in so nicely. But then again, the applicant's cesspool and his private well is like 30 feet from each other, so they didn't really have the concept.
So if the town provided water just to this one house, I mean, is it cheaper would they put a line down the whole street and then everyone could hook into it? Is it going to be cheaper, if the number of people
Jane,
get
there-
together
no,
in the
there's an
community?
there's an existing line in
Anyone.
front of the house.
Choose not to.
Okay, there is already one.
Yeah,
So the price can't go down if more than one family or two families. It's already established.
Yeah, so the water line's in the street.
Okay,
The town did that, and not everyone has tied in.
okay.
You know, they have a well, they don't want to pay a water bill, obviously, if they don't have to. So what would be the purpose?
So
And they're
what
not going
Wade
to just
is,
tie in and pay the expense to tie in.
right, but what Wade is also suggesting is that because perhaps the water quality from those wells is compromised by the septic systems and the cesspools that exist already, that if the town were to enforce some of the regulations as far as water quality, we would be asking these people who live on Lake Shore Drive to tie into the town water so that they're drinking healthy water.
Correct, and the way the Board of Health can enforce that would be saying no to a leaching facility encroaching a private well.
Right.
And they go, well, what's my option? A
Well,
couple of
Wayne,
options.
you're kind of doing this in layers. The first layer, which I think is the more obvious one, is it makes no sense to approve a plan which produces a situation where a well that is completely in compliance in all respects, all of a sudden is not.
Correct.
So that's one. But then after you say, all right, let's fix that, and fixing it, for example, by bringing the system in close to the garage. All right, now what you've done is essentially brought the well now closer to the owner's well, you brought the system closer to the owner's well, and closer to the neighbor's well on the other side here at 14 Lake Shore, although it's still possibly better than it is today, because today we have a cesspool that is at least nearly as close, if not closer. So we haven't really aggravated the situation, we've improved upon it by the quality of the new system. So there's a benefit to the neighbor for that, but still not in compliance.
Correct, correct.
Now, would you have to be in 50 feet away, though, even for the board to approve it?
At least you have to be more than 50. You can't be less than 50.
Right. So if you moved it the way you suggest, to provide the 100-foot separation to the lot across the street,
Put it
would
in
you
here.
still be 50 away from Warnick?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yes, you would. You
Oh,
could
yeah.
just- I
The
could
lot's
just tell.
50 feet wide, so just from there to there, it would be 50 feet.
Okay.
At the it's probably more because it's on an angle, it's not straight, you know what I'm saying? I would think we'd probably be close to meeting whatever this distance is. We could probably get pretty close to here if I put something, I mean, I'd have to get a waiver to the property line, probably go down to 5 feet, and a waiver to the garage. The garage is on a slab, so it's not like a basement's under there anyway,
Mhm.
so it wouldn't be really impacting the garage. Yeah, I would, I hear you, what you're saying, and I think it's not a bad idea. I mean, I was trying to split the difference between everyone when I did it. That was my thinking,
And
like,
ta-
I agree with the philosophy that you're saying, like, put the 100 feet to the neighbor who already has a
Right.
compliant well, and those of us that don't, at least try and meet what we have today or be better.
Do people test their wells?
Do they?
Hmm.
I don't
My
know.
parents do.
So, could you identify yourself?
Carl Warnick, 14 Lake Shore Drive. I'm just here from my parents.
So they test their well?
Yep.
And do you know what kind of testing they do?
We do the basic. I run a water department, so I do basic testing for them now and again.
So,
Coliform,
coliforms,
nitrates.
okay.
The issue is, with the proposed septic system, it's going to be upstream of my parents, whereas right now it's downstream, where the septic, where their cesspool is now, closer to the lake. So everything's going to filter down the hill. I mean, it's a pretty good-sized drop to their well, and it's only a shallow well. It's only 25 feet, if my memory serves me, when we pulled the pipe and.
It's a dug well,
It's a driven well,
driven into sand, so it's got
Yes.
enough yield.
yes.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the neighbor across the street, I believe, is a lot deeper, and he's downstream of the proposed septic system in the front yard also. Whereas the cesspool where it sits now, the elevation change is lower than where my parents' well is now. It's gonna flow towards the lake.
Right, the only downside, of course, is where that cesspool is now, that may be fluid going directly into the groundwater with hardly any percolation of any
Oh, I'm
kind.
sure there is, right.
So that
And-
may trump the whole issue of, you haven't got.
Yes. And I don't know if you know this, but the property's up for sale. That's why it's a failing system. So. My parents are willing to entertain town water
Mhm.
at the owner's expense, not my parents.
Mhm.
Maybe
Yes.
the town can turn around and waive the connection fee, and I think it's $3,000 or $4,000. Maybe they'll waive the connection. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the difference between 3 and 4 and 15?
That's just a fee to the town,
Right.
Just to connect into it.
not to dig the trench and put the water line in. That's just a fee to the town.
Somebody has to still dig it, though. I see.
That's on
Well,
top
maybe
of
the town
installing
could
the water
waive
line.
that fee for the owner, I don't know.
Well, we don't have that power. But anyway, yes, sir. Your name?
Jimmy, I'm actually here for the next case. I'm with Richardson Wells and Pump.
Oh,
As a suggestion, I don't know if it's considered, is a tight tank instead of a septic?
You wouldn't really want to go, well, that'd be the applicant's, another option the applicant would have if they wanted to go through that. But with tight tanks, the way they're working out now is that you're limited on the amount of use you can have for the building. They only allow tight tanks with a 6-month occupancy. To
It's a
discourage
very,
it.
yeah, that's a last resort.
I mean, it would work if you wanted to rent it out, but again, it's everybody has their own choice of what they want to do. I'm not going to say no, but it is an option. That's another option.
well, yeah, that's down the list. We're dealing principally with a sandy soil out here, right?
Yeah, it's very sandy, yeah, and Mr. Warnick is correct. The water is probably flowing towards the Populatic Pond, so the water will be going towards that. And these wells, sounds like a dug well, so it depends how much you pump your well. It starts having a cone of
If you remember, Tom, this is the area that way back, probably back when we were younger, a lot younger, when the wells went in and drew down the pond, the town wells, and then the lawsuit came
The
through.
Franklin Town well,
Correct.
yeah.
And then, that area, I mean, there's definitely, it's not a perched water table out there, it's a true water table. And it's all gravel and sand, so it's a very high flow, and those wells produce a lot of water. And they're not far from here. They're just around the corner up off Miller Street,
yeah, but
and then there's some Norfolk wells on the other side now.
they have no effect. That, the one that's Kingsbury Lake, that wellhead has no effect to this pond at all.
The
Zone
lowering
2.
took place at Kingsbury.
I'm sorry?
The lowering, the dramatic lowering
Oh,
from the Franklin well,
Yeah,
that was
that's-
the Kingsbury phenomenon, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yes, and there's actually, yeah, if you go around, do test holes around Kingsbury, you'll see where the old model lines are, where the water used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can still see the canoes tied up on the trees up higher in the bank where they used to float out in the water.
All right, well, at least that's not here.
Mention one other thing.
Yeah.
So the abutters across the street, do they know that this design is being,
Yes.
There's
Maybe,
one
yeah.
other-
Oh,
I'm Doug Cohen,
Uh,
Yeah.
there you go.
so how do you feel about them changing the,
I'm not happy about it. I'd like, if we're in compliant, why do I need to change?
okay.
Simple as that.
Good.
Unless, of course, somebody wants to put a whole new well in for me, at their expense. I don't think anybody wants to, but, why should I change if I'm already compliant?
Well, you really couldn't, because your own leaching area is 100 feet away the opposite side. So where your well located on your property is what you got.
You'd have to, the only thing you could do is go on town water at that point. Yeah, you're limited.
Well, I think we're hearing a suggestion here.
Yeah, yeah.
That maybe that particular map is not quite the one we want to work with.
Right.
And that it does seem to maintain the separation from Doug Cohen's well to the proposed system. It makes sense to move it, whatever that distance has to be 100 feet away from it. And recognize that the encroachments that exist today will continue to exist.
Correct.
Not quite, or quite probably better than they were in terms of, at least now, that leachate has the ability to undergo some percolation through arable soil as opposed to going directly into this.
Groundwater. I would agree
Groundwater.
with you.
So there's an improvement here, certainly, but no impact on compliant systems as of today. Does this seem like a reasonable proposal to?
When's your next hearing, Betsy? That I could make, because I'd have to re-advertise, correct, and re-notify? Because I'm gonna change my variances, obviously.
Yeah. you have to
They're gonna be different.
design
I'm gonna
and
need
think about
setback
it.
variances, et cetera.
We haven't set our
December?
time for, have we set one yet for November?
I thought we did.
December?
Is it way late?
That's a good idea.
Do we have to make a motion to deny the variance?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, well, he probably, I think,
I thought we have a meeting on, it's the
Or continue.
19th.
or just continue.
Is it
the
19th right
hearing.
now? Well, here's,
Well, let me
we
s-
have this meeting scheduled for the 19th, Rob.
Okay.
No, we
November.
can't. It's town meeting.
Oh, we can't. Oh, we
Perfect.
discovered we can't have the 19th.
Okay,
Right.
When
sorry.
does town meeting start?
November 19th.
No.
Oh, it's 7 PM.
You couldn't have it beforehand?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or would that be too much?
we have a certain number of moving parts here. They gotta be able to get together on a given night. And we haven't quite figured out what that is yet. But we-
Tuesday's not working out for you?
Well, we just
Not
gotta
that
figure out what it could be.
Tuesday.
Could do it the week.
Do I have the ability to continue this to your next meeting? And then what happens if I change my variance request?
Well, yeah, I would recommend that you just come back with another proposal.
Well, I think,
Variances.
personally, I think I should re-notify neighbors and send out the new variances if there are some, especially if it's a setback to a property line. That neighbor should know. And that's gonna be the gentleman to the
Yeah.
right, Earl Sholey, most likely. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I don't, maybe I can split the thing up, put a trench on each side of the garage and,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, something that, I'm thinking out loud, but maybe I only need the well. I don't know. But I just don't know if that's legal for me to continue the hearing.
Why don't you withdraw this one?
Well,
and then
let's
just-
assume that's not, so let's just go with.
Can you just waive the fee, though, for the next filing?
Well, we already did a lot of work on this, didn't we? Why would we waive the fee?
Because it's a hardship for the homeowner?
Well, there's not another application fee. There may be another variance hearing fee.
Which is that?
I think it's $50.
Okay, I guess I could live with that. Yeah, the variances will definitely change.
The board could just deny the application in front of you, the proposal, and then they can come back with another one. So at least you give them some kind of direction.
Well, right, we're talking about a modification.
But that.
Admittedly, we're,
gonna be
the
another
considerations
design.
we're having right now are gonna impact what's gonna happen with this plan.
Correct.
So we, in fact, are using this as a part of the hearing to support whatever action we eventually take on this proposal. So there is a connectivity here. But I think you do need to come back with a new request.
I agree. I think I do, too, and I think I would need to re-notify neighbors.
Right.
And if it means withdrawing, then I'll withdraw. If we just continue and I still just re-notify everyone with a new request, that's fine, too. I don't know how you do it, Tom, to be honest, legally. I mean, is it cleaner to just withdraw?
Well, I think it probably is. We can always ask town council, I guess, but.
We don't need to go that route at this point. It's not that. I
All
mean,
right.
if you continue the hearing and we re-advertise and we re-notify and we resend, it doesn't really, the process is
Yeah,
still
that's not a
correct.
big- That's not really not a big deal.
The legal process we're still following as far as notification.
Okay. Well, what's the feeling on the board?
And then, like you said, all this is still part of the process for this filing. This is all information that's part of the process.
Well,
It's
exactly.
gonna be a whole new plan.
Oh, there will be.
I mean, it's-
We're gonna resubmit a revised plan.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
We're gonna
revised
submit a
plan.
new
It's not
request,
possible.
and we're gonna, Betsy's gonna give us the date of the continued hearing, and we're gonna re-notify the neighbors of that hearing with the request for the new waivers.
I see more of a cut and dry. You have an application before you for approval, non-approval, and
Well, this is not approvable. So the question we're asking is modify this plan so that it is approvable.
Right.
And you have a certain amount of time to do that.
yeah, but if you continue it, you're putting the pressure on the applicant to come up with some kind of plan where if you allow them to continue it at their own pace, and when they're ready, they can notify the town, or notify Betsy, like to get it from the Board of Health, when's the next meeting, then he can come on and it can be continuation.
Well, that's a good point. We do need to continue to a time certain,
Right.
so.
You don't know when your meeting is, do you?
So,
As of right this second, I don't think we do. If we have,
Well, we can work on that, so.
yeah, well, before the night is over, we could. In fact, we could sort of dedicate ourselves to doing that, if we can all make a decision on that respect.
Oh, sure,
So does it have to be 30 days from now? What's the time frame for notifying the neighbors?
yeah.
I need
Just
10
10
days.
days.
10 days.
yeah,
All right. So we're looking at the week of Veterans Day,
Being before?
so before the 19th.
Well-
And afterwards becomes Thanksgiving, people are gonna be
No,
gone.
yeah.
So we could do it after the town meeting on the 21st, or before the town meeting on the 14th.
and will that be enough time for the applicant to come back with a revision?
What date you thinking?
Out of
Well,
the,
well, Tuesday would be the 12th?
yeah, get a thing.
You got a thing.
I've got planning board that night.
All right, how's Wednesday?
I work late on Wednesday.
Okay,
Do Wednesday.
I'm tied up on Thursday.
What's Thanksgiving falling? Late, right?
28th.
28th?
It's late.
What is the week before?
Yeah, we could do it the 26th.
Oh, the Tuesday right before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving?
No, we
Nobody's
can't.
going out of
No, we
town? No? I don't know.
I'm not going out of town.
Is the week
What
before?
are you guys doing Saturday?
Yard work, the usual. So, how about the first full week in November? Is that too soon?
What's the date today? I think it is.
Today's the 22nd.
That's only,
So that would be just after the 10 days. Yeah, wouldn't
I don't
wouldn't
have
give you
my
much time.
How about the Thursday, the 21st?
I'm good with that.
That's
Said
okay.
Thursday's not a problem.
So you're assuming that we're not going to have a town meeting carryover, be like a one-night town meeting?
yeah. Take a chance.
The 21st, all right.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I just remembered, that meeting that's normally on a Thursday for me is on a Wednesday in November. So that Thursday actually works for me.
The
Which one?
21st?
The
The
14th,
one
sorry.
Where you had
the 14th.
the 14th. The 14th of November, is that good for you?
The 14th is fine.
How about you, Betsy? All right,
She doesn't look happy about it.
No, I don't like having 2 meetings in 1 week, but
So what are we saying?
Well,
What's the 21st, the following Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
how much
Does
of a
that
hurry,
work?
how much of a hurry are they?
Oh, she's right here.
Applicant.
Everybody's in a hurry.
You still have
Always
to-
in a hurry.
You still have to put some thought into it.
the 21st is easier, I think, for us to arrange. Let's make it
We'll
the
do the
21st.
21st. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
All right, so now we have a date certain to continue the hearing. 7 o'clock on the 21st.
7 o'clock on the 21st. We'll
Is there-
re-notify.
There's a request
So
to
it's
continue, there has to be a
continue.
motion made and
We've
approved.
decided to continue the hearing.
We're going to request to continue.
Okay, I motion that we request to continue the hearing.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
That we accept, yeah. Aye.
Aye.
21st, 7 p.m.
21st,
All right,
7
great.
o'clock.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. So we don't usually put elevations on maps like this, because we talked about downhill flow,
Well, there is elevations on the
But-
map,
The contours are right
the contours.
between the,
yeah,
the,
but,
yeah,
which way does the water flow?
Oh, typically
Maybe
water,
that's,
to the right.
Thank you.
See, that's like down grade.
this went from 180, this is downhill. So what if they move this way to the side lot?
Well, they're going to move it a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
Probably would be the furthest away from the, just across the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
be continued, as we say. All right, we have another public hearing.
thank you.
Except I lost my speech. So it's a little after 7:15, but let's call the hearing to order anyway. So it is now 7:47 or thereabouts. I would like to call a variance hearing to order. From Board of Health Regulations, this is for 1 Cottage Avenue. And it's my duty to inform the applicant that you've got to provide the board with data to support your waiver. And from our requirements, that if you don't receive the waiver, it'll be a manifest injustice. You've also got to show that what you intend to do is environmentally acceptable. So, you're representing the applicant, or are you the applicant?
I'm representing, I'll
Okay.
get the mic over
Please grab a mic and say who you are and
For cable, so, thanks, Jimmy.
Okay, yeah, my name's Jimmy. Again, I'm with Richardson Wells and Pump. We got approached by this applicant guy to investigate and see if we could install a well on his property. And in so doing, trying to locate the well. If you're familiar with that property up there, it was like on a napkin, basically the property and everything was located, but as best we could, we located where the cesspool was, which did pass. So from there, we decided to see if we could get the 100-foot from that. And in order to do that, we ended up getting close to the road. Inside, I think it's the 40-foot to the road. Up there, the road it's a dirt road. And I think there's only one other house up beyond that road. Actually, there is another road, Norfolk Road, which is a paper road. So I think in the end, we're looking for a variance from the road. I think we have the 100-foot from the cesspool, and more than, I think it was more like 130 feet from the neighbors. I think it was a cesspool also. So that's the variance we're looking for.
could you just give the board a reference here? What part of town are you talking about?
This is Cottage Avenue, Norfolk. Yeah.
Which is located near which pond?
Ooh.
Populatic.
Populatic?
Same,
Up
yeah,
the
same
side
pond.
of the
Right?
pond from the other one,
Pull it up with
up on a hill.
This one's way up high on the hill. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
It's gonna
pond
be
sits
hard
way
to
down.
find. It's really hard to find.
Do you get there by going to Franklin first and turning right?
Correct, correct, you do.
That's funny.
Old Populatic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all like, it looks like just people's driveways when you drive up into there.
Okay. Well, thanks for that orientation. Let's go to your comments. First, Wade.
All right, the application came in pretty rough, using stuff out of the file. Some of it was hand-drawn, which you can have before you, of the location of the proposed well and their cesspool, which you can see in that small sheet from you plan. So there wasn't really much data, but there was an old plan on Cottage Ave that was approved way back in 2007, which served as really good information on where the lot lines were, where the cesspool is located, and for an upgrade. The upgrade was never accomplished, but it does show the cesspool of 1 Cottage and also the cross-street neighbor's cesspool too. So using both of that information, I just measured 100 feet out both ways, and we came up with this corner here of being 100 feet for the well. Their proposal is really close to it, and if they would just move that wellhead over to the corner, there would at least be safe distance from both of the wells, the applicant's well and the neighbor across the street's well. There is a and since we have a paper road, Norfolk Ave, and we have Cottage Ave, it comes at a corner. Both of those lots are road frontage, and the well should be 40 feet from both of them, and that would, where the variance would come from the Board of Health, so it'd be like maybe 6 to 8 feet to each of these lots. If you go there in person, if you stand here, it looks like a driveway taking a left, and it's all, and Norfolk Avenue is all woods, and it's really rustic. And it's, the people, any cars that drive by there, I think everybody would know what the car it is, because it's their neighbor coming home, or maybe a UPS truck or something. You might find some vehicles parked on the side. So so I suggested that maybe that wellhead would probably have at least maybe a post in front of it, or some kind of a fence, in case someone plows it, they don't hit it because it's so close to the road, or someone's parking their car because it's really rusty, they won't run over it because it's so up close to the roadway. But other than that, there's really minimal exposure for that wellhead to a road itself, for the main reason for 40 feet. And the applicant hasn't told us what happened to his original set, well, what's going on with that, what the location of it.
You mentioned shared well earlier?
Yeah. Oh, they're sharing a well with somebody else?
They share a well with the 6 Norfolk Ave, they own both properties.
Oh, is that across the street?
Yeah.
Oh, so they must have some kind of water service going underneath the road or something like that, huh? Oh, okay, so it's even better, so they get an independent water source.
So your recommendation with this relocation is to approve?
Yeah, we approve through a location where it meets 100 feet from both the operating cesspools in the far, let's see, northeast corner? Yeah, northeast corner of the property, along 10-plus distance to each of the property lines. Put it up in that corner.
Is that what you were recommending?
We were close, I think.
Yeah, they're recommending over here more, but their wellhead, which is right in front of you, that's 90 feet to their
Is-
well.
This one?
Yeah, that's the proposed well, and you can see, oh, it doesn't show it.
Yeah, so
I think it's out.
proposed well, okay, 90 feet from the cesspool.
Yeah, there it is, 90 feet from the cesspool. If you move it 10 feet over here, you'll be 100 feet, and you'll be 100 feet from the neighbors.
But only the variance is from the road.
Correct,
It should be 40 feet,
correct.
and it will only be,
Just by scaling, I would say, what did I say, 8 plus, 10,
8 or 10 feet,
8 or 10 feet?
which would be maybe more of an issue for a real road. At least Norfolk Avenue, as far as we know, does not exist, or it's
is there a
a
potential?
path or something that.
Woods.
Woods, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
woods,
Doesn't look like a road.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just, how would you locate? How would you know where to put it? And we're looking at this paper plan right here, which we have a copy of.
Yeah.
How would you know where to put it and where the property lines are?
That's part of an issue. Might have to have an engineer go do it.
Have it land surveyed so they
Yeah.
can get, to make sure it's on the same
So you
property.
get it right where you want it, since it's a little bit,
So again, we don't have all the information. Am I missing something?
No.
what
I mean,
info-
how-
We don't have
what
an
do we-
engineer plan here, we've got a
Yeah.
sketch.
Yeah, yeah.
How can
The
we
only engineer plan
approve?
we have is that one,
Correct.
but that doesn't show the exact location of this well.
Thank you.
And how do we know that you can dig a well there? I don't know. Within
we know
8 or
about where it
10
is.
feet. I mean, don't you have, maybe there's not water there
Well,
or
you bring
something,
up,
I don't
you bring up something good. Maybe the application should come back with a more defined plan where the well is going to be located. And since we know that it meets 100 feet from both the cesspools, it should be located meeting both of those dimensions.
So you can dig a well anywhere, you just might have to dig farther down sometimes than other times, but you'll always eventually hit water?
you never know.
Yeah.
You could go, deep. We know one thing up in there, there's a lot of sand, so there's gonna be a lot of, casing,
I think,
but water, yeah, you don't know. You could hit it at 100 feet, you could hit it at 400 feet. I would have to look up, so usually what we do is we go in the area, because of the state database, you can get an idea what across, the other wells in the area are.
Yeah, like the existing well that's being
Yeah.
shared.
so does the existing well work, even though it's shared?
Yeah, his,
So
I
they've just
think his,
decided they don't want an
his idea is, see, he lives across the street with the existing, the mother lived in the house we're trying to locate a new well for, because he wants to sell it.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay. I think we need
Uh,
more
I think-
information.
As much as this is a useful sketch, it doesn't exactly guarantee that when you say it's 100 feet away and 100 feet away, that's exactly where the well's going to get dug or drilled. I mean, if we're really being careful about making sure these offsets are 100 feet, you can't say it's over there somewhere. You've gotta actually have a spot to drill.
Well, I agree. You know, and you need an engineered plan, is what you're
Right.
saying.
That's what we're saying. We need an engineer plan, that, based on the sketch, so we know it can be done. There's feasible right now, but we need to have a real plan to go by.
It can also be done by a land surveyor, too.
Yeah, it hasn't got to be an engineer, a land surveyor can do this.
And we already have a plan, a stamped plan in the office, too, to help out the land surveyor or the engineer to make the cost less for the homeowner.
Who's the engineer on that, if you don't mind?
It was Fred Stavinsky, but I'm not sure he's around anymore.
Yeah, Fred's not around anymore.
Okay.
Would there be some concern eventually, depending on where the well is and the cesspool is, with, after they sell the property, for them to build something larger than a one-bedroom home? So is somebody gonna look at that potentially to develop that property and put it in appropriately? So that,
I'm not sure.
not sure,
what
just curious.
their intent there. I think it was just to sell a current structure. Yep. That's what I was told.
If this is all undeveloped land, where is it, Betsy? I mean, someone might come in and decide to develop, I don't know.
Yeah, but once you
There
put
you
a,
go.
once you put a private well into the ground, the well has property rights for dimensional rights, and the development would have to go around the well for the protection of the,
But we're giving him a variance from the road,
correct?
which
Yeah, whatever happened
sets
if
things
the-
up for the
Right, whatever
future.
happened if the town wanted to put a sidewalk in or something like that, down Cottage Avenue?
I don't know.
Well, it's got to be in the right of way for the
Oh,
Cottage Avenue.
yeah, the well is on the person's property.
Okay.
It'd be a land taking.
But that, again, is another reason for an engineer plan. Make sure it is on this property.
It's true, yeah.
So where is
Locating
it? Where is it? Where's Cottage?
Is it the blue one?
Oh,
Yes.
yes, the blue one is the one that we're talking about.
So, yeah, up top is
Popularity.
his house, yep. And to the right, is that a
What-
lot, or is that
what is all
conservation? He
that
told me it
land?
was some land that would never be developed, is what he told me, I'm not sure. Yeah,
All of that. Because isn't that the corner that you're talking about?
That's all this.
Right.
it is privately owned.
Well, I tell you what, I have a question, Wayne.
Sure.
Can we approve the concept, actually grant a variance pending the submission of an engineered drawing, and then when you get the engineered drawing,
Can let it go, sure.
let it go?
Yeah, that's why on my report, I said plus or minus 8 feet, 6 feet. It's like,
Right.
you can even say 10 feet, allowing them to encroach both properties by 30 feet. That'll give the guy or the person 10 feet encroachment
Uh-huh.
to the two property lines.
So if we are good philosophically with this location, we can grant a variance, which has to have anyway.
They could go the opposite side of the lot, too.
In
And
which case, they would have another variance on the other side?
That,
It would just be one.
I'd have to have a scale.
It would just be the variance from Cottage Ave.
I guess 40 also. Yeah. That looks like this is the applicant's wishes, so that's what he's asking for.
Just so you know, when we have our surveyor, whoever, not only lay it out on the map, we make them go put the stake in the ground also.
Yeah.
And is there any notification of the butters in terms of where the well is going? Is that required? Just curious.
After that, no,
No, okay.
unless he was encroaching theirs. If a septic system was encroaching a well, there'd be notification.
you mentioned something about putting up a fence or something?
Well, yeah, the well itself would be a circular pipe, 4-inch pipe, sticking 3 feet out of the ground,
Okay,
just by itself. And if you went up that area, it's all grass area, low shrubs. The road is dirt, it's like a driveway. And if someone were to drive over to go to someone's house, drive over, they could hit that well, because it's so close to the road.
Or the plow.
Or definitely a plow, yes, because you're giving a variance going close to a road, because it should be 40 feet away. It's somewhat safe for any kind of vehicle and activity in the road. So if you're gonna let it go close to the road, then I was suggesting that the wellhead be somewhat protected with some kind of a fence or maybe a post or something, and someone came there to hit the post first. and protect the wellhead.
So if we give the variance contingent upon a plan approval, we need to have those kind
Well-
of things written in it as well.
Yeah. I mean, a safety plan of some sort, but we don't know what the sort is yet, to protect the wellhead.
Could be a corner fence, a fence on both the corners, a property corner fence, identifies the
Because
property.
even a plow going by dumping snow is gonna
Yeah, you
dump
could-
snow right on top of that.
You
8
could
feet
put
from
like the metal
road.
bars, you know, that you see in parking lots around fire hydrants or whatever. They're metal and they go down into concrete. You can do that.
You get
Put
those-
3 or 4 of those around it.
That's actually what I was thinking of, because I've seen these around fire
they're
hydrants.
Bollards.
If it was my well, I would do it.
Yeah,
Let's put
so
it that
some
way.
bollards.
Huh?
Bollards is what they're referred to. A bollard?
Baller, yep, yep. I mean, if it was my well, I'd put it in there, for sure.
You could put that in your variance, require 3 of them. The plans to show it.
All right, are we going to actually have all this stuff voted upon tonight, or are we going to wait till we see what the plan looks like?
It's your choice, because I'm gonna see what the plan looks like anyhow.
Yeah,
No
let's
matter what
probably
happens.
see what
I'd
the
probably
plan-
wait again too to
Yeah,
get
let's
something
wait
that's
and see
better
All
what
right,
than
here's the
the
question.
hand-sketched drawing.
Is the,
Since you're having another meeting anyhow.
Exactly.
And you're-
so what we're looking for is a plan, which will have all this description on it. The bollards, the location of the well, and the fact that it's 100 feet or whatever the number turns out to be from any,
Cesspool.
existing cesspool or leaching field.
This plan shows a couple.
So we're going to be getting together again on November 21st? Would that be a suitable time to allow all that engineering to get done? Or land surveying to get done? Because we can continue to that night if you want to.
Is he retired, or some guys, these guys still have it in their
I
database?
haven't heard
Yeah, I
from,
think he's retired.
Is he down at Cape? I think I used this guy before, and he's retired, but he still was able to because he has the database, that makes it easier.
yeah, a lot of guys will keep their database or sell it.
If not, it could take longer, but I'm not sure till I find out.
All right, well, I'll tell you, we can
Let's see.
continue to that evening, and if you decide you can't, let us know.
Works for me.
All right, let's continue it to, we've already got the first one continued to say 7 o'clock. It's optimistic, but maybe it'll work. Let's try 7:15. Don't get here too early, because you may be here a while. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll close our public hearing on that
To
issue.
make it official,
Need a motion.
a motion.
Continue?
Yep.
Is there a motion to, you made the motion to continue, didn't you?
I have made the motion to
Is there a
continue.
second to the motion?
I second the motion to
On-
continue the
Hearing
hearing,
for
the
one-
variance on a well on
One Cottage Avenue.
One Cottage Avenue.
There's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We continue.
Okay.
Okey-dokey.
It's like
On to other
going-
business.
going to-
Minutes. We have some minutes from October the 1st. Are there any additions or corrections?
Fran just had one correction.
It's just a typo on paragraph 3, sentence 2. It said, it should say, he said, but that's all I saw.
Yeah.
But I don't know
Yeah,
if you saw
I got that
anything
one
else.
as well. I had a couple of the minor ones, these are just editorial. I mean, one of the ones, the very beginning says, we should restrict the sale of mint, menthol, or wintergreen. Well, we don't restrict those plants, we're talking about flavored tobacco products. So you probably ought to put that in a couple times, where those are. Anyway, I can share, these are really minor. I don't think they're going to affect the intent of anything. But I'll just give them to you, Betsy, if you guys will trust me on that.
Yeah.
All right.
When you know what it she meant. I wasn't even thinking about it that way.
All right.
Okay.
So with those subtle modifications, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes of the Tuesday, October 1st Board of Health meeting, 2019.
And I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence review,
I don't have anything new.
okay. Proposed discussion revisions of the Norfolk Board of Health sewage disposal regs. What's up with that?
So we had, I'm sorry, Wade, we had talked about that at the last meeting.
Oh, that part, the continuation of. Is this all about the garbage grinders?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Okay, the
that
garbage
long
grinders.
conversation about the garbage grinders.
So, I do have a copy of our existing regulations.
Oh, thank you.
I actually had them, I had them already.
These are our existing regulations.
I think yeah, but there's only one piece, right?
Right.
That
And that's the whole thing, but we really just need.
we just need all sewerage designs for dwelling shall include.
If you go to Section 3, specifications for systems design, number 5,
Yep.
page 4,
Right.
that's the paragraph that addresses garbage grinders. And it's required that all sewer disposal designs for dwellings shall include provisions for a garbage grinder. That's all new construction. Upgrades of existing failing systems shall not be required to include the provisions for a garbage grinder, provided that a suitable document is recorded in the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, which signifies that no garbage grinder shall be installed or used in a dwelling on the subject property.
Mhm.
That regulation has been in the town for decades.
Mhm.
It's an old regulation. And it did come up in front of the board through Richard McCarthy doing a project in center of town. And he was talking about sizing of the projects with drainage, stormwater drainage, and then sizing of, on each lot, stormwater drainage, and then on-site septic drainage. And he was saying that because of this regulation, the additional design requirement is putting some constraints on some of the projects. And from that, I spun off saying, well, you could take a look at garbage grinders entirely in the regulation, because I think what Rich was looking for is like, kind of like a spot variance, like the project there to allow people not to use garbage grinders. And in that case, I could just see what would happen in the long run, because you start giving variances on new construction. And to be fair across the board, you're going to get a lot of other people coming in to ask for the same for residential subdivisions. Because designing for a garbage grinder, you're designing 50% more of the leaching area. So it's more land, more excavation, and more product to put into the ground. And it can get very expensive. And that's why people, and if they're doing 20, 30, or a bunch of homes, the amount will increase, so you'll probably find more people coming before you asking for the same variance. So with that thought in place, I started thinking, well, do you really need to have the garbage grinder in your regulations? Make it more of a designer's choice, or the homeowner's choice to have a garbage grinder. And if they, and I believe, my predecessor wrote this. Tom, you know my predecessor quite well. I'm not sure the reason why he wrote this, put it into regulation, but you typically, a community has a need for a local regulation to come into play. I'm not sure what his need is for, but if you were to design a septic system without the garbage grinder and you happen to sneak one in, the problem would be that your system would prematurely fail. You'd have to upgrade it.
Mhm.
So it'd be an individual decision doing that, not, where it would affect an individual making that decision.
I've heard the same complaint from some other members of our town regarding this regulation.
And if your town will allow, this regulation will allow relief on repairs. So if you have a repair, you don't have to put a garbage grinder in the design. But if you do, you have to put a deed restriction on your property. So now
Yeah.
you're marking your property that you don't, that you cannot put a garbage grinder in your house.
Remembering our conversation from last time, we talked about the almost basic incompatibility between having garbage grinders flowing their effluent into a septic tank and leaching field when you have the ability to essentially produce a very fine particulate mass of organic matter with a garbage grinder that may essentially take a shortcut out through the septic tank and get into the leaching field still with a lot of organic matter that would normally have been chewed up biologically and turned into true liquid material that is now suspended solids that are getting into the, I mean, that's the reason why you're having this impact on the leaching fields, right?
Well, no, going into design requirement, one of the biggest things would be, well, you're adding more solids and organics into your leaching facility because you're putting food stuff down your garbage grinder. So you're adding more solids into your system than you normally would if you didn't have it all together. You put it in your compost pile. So the tank itself is required for a garbage grinder to be a 2-compartment tank. And then there's a hydraulic retention time required for each section, meaning when the water enters this side, theoretically, it takes this much time to reach the other side. So the first tank is, I believe, 48 hours, and then the second tank's 24 hours. So for the 2-compartment tanks. When there's both hydraulic retention times, the solids get, the additional solids come in, have time to sink, to float down, and then the water gets clearer as it leaves the tank. If designed without a garbage grinder at all, you just got one big single tank, same size, and then everything gets meshed together, and then you get that hydraulic detention time to leave the other side. So there's no filtration or settling filtration going on. So if you had this one compartment tank and put a garbage grinder in it, then you're adding more solids into the tank, and then it starts mixing up, and the gray water doesn't clear as much, and then you get particles going to leaching area, which starts clogging up the soils.
Okay. So my issue was that if you have a system that's not designed for a garbage grinder, and you go to Home Depot and you buy a garbage grinder and you put it in, what you're going to basically allow to happen, for whatever reason, is you may in fact damage your septic system, at least the leaching field, make it clogged up way before its time.
Yeah, you'll overload your organics in your system.
But that's the homeowner's decision to do that,
Well, right.
or a mistake.
But if we're kind of opening the door for the homeowner to exercise that by not requiring that 2-tank or the 2-compartment system, just so we got our bases covered, yeah, it'll be less expensive to purchase that tank. But we're making it possible for a lot more systems to fail.
So,
Does that make sense?
The second part, I didn't catch. Oh, you mean, by not having this regulation in here?
Well, by requiring that 2-tank system, we got it covered. Not necessarily the extended field, but certainly we have the issue of the settling process, the 2 days, the 4, and so on.
Okay, yeah, now, Tom, if you wanted the 2-tank, the 2-section tanks, then you'd have to require that being all tanks being 2-section tanks. Because once you take the garbage grinder requirement out from the regulation and the
Yeah.
requirement, then the designer could use a single tank and still meet code.
Sure. But I'm wondering whether, as a kind of a compromise here, the issue is, there are 2 issues here. One is the tank, construction, but the other one is the more expensive one, is the idea of you got to calibrate to 165 gallons a day versus 110, which has a huge impact on the amount of territory you've got to dig up to put that system in the ground. So if at least you had the 2-tiered system happening inside the tank, you've got a little bit of a head start on prolonging the life of a system if somebody down the road decides to go put a grinder in a house that didn't originally have one.
I think that's a good thought. Also, a 2-compartment tank has other benefits too, even if you don't have a garbage grinder. It settles out the solids more time in settling it out. Hydraulic times, it's spread out longer, so your effluent, your wastewater coming out of the tank is probably cleaner than it would as a single tank. A two-compartment tank's a good idea. It also probably denitrifies a little bit too. There's a lot of organics, a lot of chemistry can be happening in those two-compartment tanks.
And cost-wise, what's the difference between a two-compartment and a one-compartment for the builder?
I would say, not very much, not very much, it's not like we were talking about the water service going into homes being 15,000.
Right.
You're probably talking hundreds of dollars.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a minimum insurance policy in
Sure.
terms of, the premium.
Yeah, and I've talked to a few people, and they say they like the two-compartment tanks.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the problem. I think it's more the requirement of the garbage grinder and having to have one. And if you don't have one, you have a deed restriction saying that you can't have one
So,
unless you
Um,
upgrade your septic system, which is good. I just don't, I'm not sure when it was originally written, if there was multiple failures everywhere, or people were fallen into despair or finance problems because they were putting garbage grinders in their home. I'm not sure the reason for
you
it.
don't even know when it was written. When did cesspools get replaced by septic systems?
Probably back in the 70s, I would say.
So were these regulations before septic systems?
I think the noticing garbage grinders was probably it was in the 1978 code book, and before that might have been Article 2. I'd have to look at it. But in 1978 code book, which goes back in 1978, the garbage grinders were looked at as a different design, larger field.
Okay, I have another question about,
Oh, but Fran, we're not saying you can never have a garbage
No,
grinder.
no.
Okay.
and this is what I don't understand either. The State Environmental Code, Title V, already says that, let's see, in accordance, area requirements increase by 50% when garbage grinders are installed, and the system shall be upgraded to meet such requirements prior to installation of a garbage grinder. So if Title V already says something about garbage grinders and increasing the area, why do our regulations also have to say, be more restrictive?
Because, I don't know. That's the question we're
Right.
putting on the
So
table.
that's the question, is saying all sewage disposal designs for dwellings shall include provisions for garbage grinder. So you're required as a builder to make provisions for garbage grinder, even if you didn't want to, and you could sell your house without a garbage grinder if you wanted to. And it would be less money to put in the septic system, and you might be able to increase the size of the house that you're building and make more money. So it's beneficial for the developer not to have to put in a garbage grinder if you didn't want to.
But if they want to put in a garbage grinder, then they have
Then
to
again.
Correct, correct.
adhere
Oh,
to,
yeah, it's in the design, correct.
Right.
It's a choice.
Well,
It's a-
they, the builder, but not
Right.
they, the homeowner.
well,
Down the road, the homeowner can do whatever the
well,
homeowner wants.
the homeowner.
That's true.
right.
They could put a garbage grinder in there
And wreck
mess
their
up.
septic system, but
Well,
that's their
Or they could put it
option.
in as a resale of, enhancement, perhaps.
Leaky
Because maybe
toilets.
somebody wants to buy their house, really would like to have a garbage grinder. No problem, I can put one in before you know it. And guess what? We have no control over that.
Right.
Unless we can try to do something to at least give ourselves a little bit of a safety edge, which is where the two-tank,
All right, I don't think that's a
comes in.
bad
Um,
compromise.
How does this all work when it comes to proposals on the table under 40B? Now everything reverts back to the state regs, right?
That's correct.
So none of this applies to 40B.
That's correct.
Okay.
Unless they chose to do it. They could do if they wanted to, but they're not obligated to do it, to work under local regulations. And typically, all of them don't, because it's,
So in terms of things that are going on in town right now, I mean, there's an awful lot of construction in the center of town.
oh, yeah, the 40Bs are not looking at designing garbage grinders. They don't have garbage grinders in it. But I think some of their condo association requirements are saying no garbage grinders, just to protect themselves.
Or that they not.
Yeah, not to have a garbage grinder, to protect themselves. So if your neighbor has one, as a condo, you can say no, because our system isn't allowed to have it, take it out. So,
Where did you come up with the idea of the two-tank system? Do other towns do this, or?
The 2 tanks came from the state code requirements when you design it.
Oh,
Are you talking about the proposal to just do the 2-tank and not actually go for the whole extended leaching field? Is that what you're asking about?
well, what you were just discussing with Wade about.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of
But
the
that's already
halfway measure of getting a garbage grinder compatible septic tank, but without the extension of the leaching field.
It would be garbage.
So are you saying that you could, so instead of making it a requirement that the whole septic system is set up with 50% extra space to take care of the garbage grinder, if we made a compromise and said you need to put in the 2-tank septic system, and then if you decide to put in a garbage grinder, you can increase your septic field, that's up to you, but at least the tank is already there?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, you could require all tanks to be 2-compartment, related to the size of the wastewater coming out, and leave it as that. And don't even talk about garbage grinders, but if anybody wants to put one in, that part of the design's already been satisfied, because they already have a 2-compartment tank, it's already there. So you just
But you wouldn't have to increase the size of the.
You would.
Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't
Yes.
know, but the thing is, we wouldn't know about it
You would not know about it, but
if it's not the builder doing it.
unless it failed, and then we would know about it, and then when he upgraded it, and when he keep that garbage grinder in there, they would have to remove their tank. You know, I mean, leaky toilets fail septic systems too. I mean, there's a lot of things that fail septic systems.
I won't tell you, we had a
Illegal bedrooms.
17.
Home Depot bedrooms in a basement will fail septic systems too. There's a lot of things that will affect the wastewater flow coming out of residential homes. Overcrowding, misdesign. Even bedroom deed restrictions, like bedroom for a home, 3-bedroom deed restriction. Well, there's one house in town that went for sale and had a septic upgrade, and I looked at Zello, and they had a great floor plan. I counted 6.
Ah.
And that's a 3-bedroom, and they're going for a septic upgrade, and since the house was more than 3, I told the contractor to design it appropriate. I think they designed it for a 5. I think it might have been a 5. So we designed it for a 5-bedroom. The restriction was no longer in place. The house is big, it was sitting there. It wasn't a 3, it was a 5. I wouldn't want to have them do lower or make a smaller design just for the deed restriction. I want to be more practical and what's physically there, let's just have that utility serve the home that's going to really serve it, not to serve it. So sometimes the deed restrictions don't always work either, unless you have some major police force. And that's not very popular either, or even practical. And this all came out from a project the town was looking at, and they kind of saw the garbage grinder requirement, and couldn't really give them too much of an answer why it was needed, other than it's a regulation.
So how does this work with the work of your committee? Are you looking at,
Oh, the B1?
yeah. Is there any impact on what we're talking about now in the work of your committee?
Nope,
Oh,
not that I'm aware of.
okay.
Now, it's been a regulation for many decades, so change is not an easy thing to do in communities. People don't like it. They feel safe with
Well,
it.
we haven't had too many monumental changes in the, well, let's see, almost, 40 years I've been associated with the board. Nitrate regs are the big one.
Yep.
That had a major impact.
But the state caught up to that.
Yeah, now for about 8 or 9 years, or
Yeah.
thereabouts, we were the ones.
Yeah, late 1980s, you had nitrogen regulations for Zone 2s. That was impressive. Impressive.
What, as I think Fran had asked before, how many other towns either do or do not require?
There are other towns, but they're created from the same predecessor.
Like Dover,
Bill don't.
because Dover has a requirement that new construction.
Wealth,
Does Rentham?
Rentham has it, Plainville
Yeah.
has it, I believe.
So if we were going to make a modification to the regulations, do we have to have a hearing? Like we did with the,
If it's a hearing from Board of Health
Regulation?
Regulation, or if it's a change in Board of Health Regulations, I think we have to have a public hearing.
Yeah, I think so. At first I thought because you omit something from the regulation, would it really be a change of regulation? But I guess it would be a modification.
And maybe we can get some feedback from people.
Well, I would like to get some feedback, because I've heard both sides of this argument, and I'd like to get it all on the record.
Right, right.
Because when these regulations were written and approved, we had a public, actually sent out a draft to many people. You know, I sent them out, even to old board members too. And then we had public hearing, and people did write some stuff down. I remember talking to the board then about the generator switch for pump systems. Not all towns have it, and the board decided to keep it. And I've even asked a lot of people in town about the generator switch, and they also said you should keep it, because the town loses electricity a lot, so it's a good thing. So I thought that was good. It was reviewed again, brought up again, people looked at it, talked about it, and continued it on. So when people do gripe about it, I say, well, it was voted in again. It's not something people want to lose. If the garbage grinder increased design is, some people might think it's a good thing. Well, I bought a 4-bedroom house and it's designed for 6, because that's what 50% would be. Longevity of my system is going to be even longer. What a great bargain for me. You know, so there's another side of things too. If you have-
What was the revision in 2015? Did that go out for, is that what you're talking about when you were?
Yeah, yes.
So these got
Yeah,
crafted.
Yeah, I
That's
had,
the best way to
yeah,
describe
I
it.
had the honor to revise the previous septic regulations, which sat on the shelf for at least 5 years, and it finally came alight.
It took us a little while
It
to
did- yeah,
get
'cause it's-
around to this.
And I was okay with that, because it's changed. It's a change of regulations in Title V and law on site
Yeah,
septic.
right,
It's a
here's
big
the-
thing in this town, so.
So I get, where I'm going with that is, are there other pieces of this regulation that might need to be revised besides just this one thing of all sewage designs for dwellings shall include provisions for a garbage grinder?
Possibly, we can take a look at that if you like.
Well, I guess we should do everything at
Well,
once.
I'll tell you what, I mean,
I mean,
if you
I
like,
don't
what we
really
could
care.
do between now and November 21st is actually peruse this and see if there's anything else in here that, well, of course.
Well,
I would
how
have
much?
no
You would.
thoughts
No,
on
I
that.
have
What's
no.
the point of that, as a
Yeah.
question?
Well, the
Yeah.
only change would probably be, would be high groundwater season. Would you go Title V and just go through modeling? Or would you rather have new construction be in the high groundwater season? Personally,
need-
I like high groundwater.
We, the
season.
select group, not including necessarily Board of Health members, none of us who are involved
Well-
in installing septic tanks and leaching fields, to maybe take a look at these regs and decide
Well,
the things that are anachronistic here that we really don't need any of them.
well, I think these regs are pretty good regs.
You say so yourself.
I
Of
do
course you
see
wrote
myself,
them,
I mean, I took the old regs, which was advanced, but unfortunately wasn't kept up. There's a lot of stuff that was redundant with Title V, and some stuff were just, needed to be changed. And then I just, with the current stuff was going on, we came up with a 6-pager. And it's got some good stuff in it, and it's got some stuff that stayed with the old stuff. I just kept it going, because I just knew change is difficult. You get people in the industry, of course, that want it easier. Regulatory, of course, less paperwork. You could have someone talk about, if you look at page 5, they want to talk about the minimum setbacks from private portable wells and the percolation rates. A lot of people, Title V is just strictly 100 feet. That's it. This is a little more stringent. I like this. I think it's a good thing. I think it's, when people argue like, well, what's the big deal having 6 feet above maximum groundwater? I think, well, it's just a little extra filtration on it. I see no problem with that.
Well, I think that a piece of this is building in a safety margin. That was really, I think, the guiding principle that Bill took with a lot of the work that he guided us on is, yeah, this is going to be okay this way, but if we put it this way, then we're really safe. And we have, a lot of confidence this is going to work and work for a long time. Although then I hear, this installation of systems from the 1970s and 80s that are now failing. They were theoretically built according to some pretty high specifications, so there is no guarantee.
No, that's 70s and, yeah, it's quite a few years ago, too.
Right.
It's a long
So
time.
even though you design them well, you think.
Yeah.
the way they're used or not used well.
Or not pumped properly.
Yeah. Then you have your situation where you never pumped it for like 20 years.
17 years. 17 years we did not.
Yep.
Clean out our septic
There's a lot of
system on
variability in this.
Barnstable Road, because I grew up in Newton, Mars, we grew up in Providence, and we had no idea that you had to actually pump out the septic. So we went to sell the house, and we did a Title V inspection. They were like, when was the last time you cleaned this? And we said, never. And it passed just fine. We didn't have a garbage grinder.
And they're only 2 of you, right? Yeah, I think that there were some special conditions there that allowed that to happen.
Avery's designed with a garbage grinder, that's why it's so big, so
All right.
Now, this all came up from Richard McCarthy saying about possibly giving you guys giving a variance in new construction. So then it kind of fed. So I'm not saying there's a drastic need to change it, but I'm just saying.
It was also, Peter Chipman came to me and asked me about this as well, and that was, he thought this was a concern.
Yeah, he had a project in town, and he had apartments above and retail down below, and, yeah, and it did affect the design, not as much I think you might think of it, it's just the apartments that went 50%, not the whole system, just that design for those apartments. And he was concerned about it, and it was right after the regulations just changed, and he got a little upset, but he was one of the persons I forwarded it to for comments, because he used to be a Board of Health member. So, yeah, he was in opposition to it. I talked to a lot of designers a lot.
We ought to have a public hearing where we actually invite, I think, people who are directly impacted by this.
Hear somebody else talk about it other than just me. Would be good.
Yeah.
Concepts.
As well as folks who have an interest in making sure that the town does not basically, forego what may have been useful for a long, long time as a valuable regulation. So we need to cover both sides of that
How do you
discussion.
invite, how do people know about this, so it's not just the night of? How do we notify?
Well, we need
a
to
group of people?
advertise.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that
But how many people actually look at the paper to see if there's going to be a hearing on the Board of Health septic
Oh,
regulations?
yeah, but also we'll invite too, like all the engineers that work in town and the contractors that work in town.
Oh, okay.
We'll give them an
That's
email,
what
and we'll
I-
give them like a draft saying, we like the changes, could you
Okay,
give
that
us
makes
comments,
sense
could you
to me.
write it, even scratch it on it and mail it in if you can't show it, we'd just like to have your
That
comments.
sounds
And out
reasonable.
of all that, you might get 3 or 4.
Okay, but
still-
you'll have comments?
Yeah, but still it'll be something,
Good.
and you might have so many people come in.
Well, let's give ourselves until the 21st to actually draft some changes. Just to
Well-
take a look at it.
Do you think, I think Wade's saying there aren't any changes.
Well,
Well, we were talking, for example,
Other
about the
than
idea of the
this.
2-tank septics.
Well,
tank.
Oh,
well, yeah, if you're gonna change your
If we were
garbage
going to say you
grinder,
didn't have to have 165 feet.
you'd still like to have somewhat of a hybrid of it, of a system, so you'd require double tanks, 2-compartment tanks. And you wouldn't have to mention garbage grinders.
But today, does every tank that goes in the ground in Norfolk have to have a double tank?
Does every tank, technically, no. If they had a deed restriction, they could not have a garbage grinder in the house, then theoretically, they could put a single tank. in,
For
'cause-
new construction?
No, for repairs,
Right,
repairs,
but for new construction,
Nope,
does every
double-
tank have to be a double?
yes.
Ah,
okay.
okay.
And that's from the state?
No, that's
What's
from,
this?
well,
That's from us?
it's the state design, but the
Yeah.
local board's enforcing it. So-
Right, but it's not in our regulations.
Yes, it is. in
It
your-
is in our regulations, where is
Our
it?
regulations say you have to design for a garbage grinder, for new construction, you have to.
No.
The state tells you how to do it. the
But if we
size of-
took out
Oh,
that you don't have to design for a garbage grinder,
yep, then it would only
then-
be,
The 2-tank would go out.
Two-tank
unless we
would
make
go
this
out of here.
modification,
Right.
which says that it stays in,
correct.
Right.
but the big leaching field goes out.
Correct,
Yeah, that's the difference.
unless you wanted
and
one.
it's not in the state regulations if you don't have a garbage grinder. If you don't have a garbage grinder for new construction, in the state regulations, does it say you have to have 2 tanks?
No.
Well, I don't understand why we would say it then.
Right, no, so
Well, because we're adding ourselves a little safety measure, which says if you have 2 tanks and down the road, the homeowner decides to put in, because they did, the cook in the kitchen wants a garbage grinder, damn it, and so they put one in, and then discover a few years later, you know,
That's
the
the
leaching field is
homeowner's
gone.
Yeah, and they should
Well, I
have had a
agree.
bigger.
They would have had no
septic.
inclination of any sort that doing that was a bad idea, because nobody would have told them. So that, what I'm saying is, this at least helps the board protect, to some extent, the interests of the homeowner by saying, all right, if you want to put it in, yeah, the field isn't as big as it's supposed to be, but at least you got a tank, which will make it a lot longer before that field gets screwed up.
Would most
I
people
think-
call a plumber to put in a garbage grinder?
Some do, but Home Depot and Lowe's and those companies open up the door for handymans or handy women to do it themselves.
All right, but if they
Of
called
course,
the
in
plumber.
Norfolk, imagine it'd be a plumber.
Oh, but if you
Right. But
did
if they
call,
call-
if you did call a plumber,
Right.
it would go through the building department, that's
Right,
correct.
right.
And the plumber could call the Board of Health saying, I got a request for a plumbing permit
Right.
for a garbage grinder. Well, this is, can you do it? And we can look it up and say, no.
So, yeah, Betsy, how many of those calls do we get?
1, 2?
Ever?
No.
No.
You could put into your Form 1 application, that's where any building permit gets activated, the Board of Health gets to review it. You can include it for plumbing too. And that would be a little safety net for you, because if you just look at it, plumbing, garbage grinder, you look at the design, oh, can't do it, and then the Board of Health reply to that application to be denied because the septic system cannot sustain a garbage grinder unless they upgrade.
Hmm.
So maybe we should just at least start with sending it out to all the engineers and,
Well, but it gives them an idea.
You gotta come up with a draft first before we send it out.
Yeah, I mean,
The
we need to
original.
develop a draft. Let's give ourselves a month to develop a draft that has some ideas in it,
okay.
and just roughed out ideas.
All right, I'll take a look at this again and go over it. Give you
All right.
a couple ideas of what you can do and explain, you can learn from it too, and explain.
Thank you.
And then you make a decision on it, because your decision's gonna affect a lot of people,
Hmm.
a lot of homes, and just for common sense stuff.
Okay, we'll take it up again on the 21st. So that's on the agenda for the 21st, okay?
Okay.
Which brings us to MRC updates, Fran.
So we had a flu clinic and vaccinated 89 people, and we used Betsy had everything ready, signs and
Yeah, we-
paperwork and
pretty well
it works like,
orchestrated,
yeah, worked like a EDS clinic. We had an observer from the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coalition that directs us on these EDS plans, and he was there to give us some guidance and suggestions, and we're
Yep.
moving along with that plan, so that's working well, and it all went well. And going forward, we had a meeting last night, we're planning for sheltering workshop, November 16th.
Saturday
and-
at the library from 9 to 11.
And that will be presented by an American Red Cross individual on sheltering. So we've got the year planned out, it's working well. Can you think of anything else to
I actually
add
had a
to that?
question for you, so thank you for sending me the invitation from Sean Dooley about the Stop the Bleed. So he's putting on his program now, so he donated all those kits to the schools, and the MRC donated the kits to the DPW, the library, town hall, and the senior center. So he invited whom to his training, because apparently we have a Stop the Bleed training like 2 weeks later.
I'm not sure who he invited to his
Okay.
training. So,
Because I was just curious, because seemed to be repeating the same program 2 weeks apart, and I wasn't sure that perhaps we could maybe advertise that if you can't make it to this one, you can come to this one, but I wasn't sure again who
yeah, you
he
have to
kind
let
of
him know
targeted his
because
audience.
you need a trainer for every 5 participants, I believe.
So how are we doing with that? Because we have the Stop the Bleed.
Well, we didn't set a date for our Stop the Bleed. We were talking about doing it in,
February,
well,
or March, I thought.
March, but we were specifically talking about the municipal individual employees in these buildings that we've put the Stop the Bleed kits in.
Right.
That's what you
Right.
were going to do, but we didn't have an actual date for
Okay,
that.
I'm sorry, I thought we had a
No.
date.
But we thought maybe we could combine the municipal employees here with Sean Dooley's
Okay, so
program.
I can get in touch with Sean and just
Sean,
ask
maybe.
them who they extended the invitation to and recommend that they extend it to the town hall, the DPW, the senior center, and the library people.
You think it's 1 per 5 people? Because we had 25 people in March.
I could be mistaken.
Okay, so that is a good point, too. Then I'm surprised they don't have an invitation that people have to sign up for, so that you have an idea.
You were supposed to reply, so I replied to his chief of staff, William, who I was, except now I have to take somebody off because I didn't realize that the planning board is on the 12th. I signed up Gary, but he obviously can't come. So, interesting, okay. So I'll work that out.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
call them and see what's up.
But that's one of the things that we thought we could do as the MRC is train the municipal employees.
I
And
think that's a great
Eileen
idea.
as a trainer, and we now have a new young man who is a nurse, and he would help Eileen, and I think, do the training for the municipal employees.
I have to check
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
So he's gonna-
Who was that?
David, do you remember? I think I forget his last name. He came to you
Oh, okay.
recently, but you see a lot of people. Anyway, so we have a couple of people that can do the training. If we're gonna have the kits
Mhm.
in these buildings, we should train people on how to use them. Okay, so to be continued, right? We'll see.
Yep.
Okay, and that's, I think that's all for the MRC.
Okay.
Okay.
We've established November 21st for our next meeting, and after that, maybe we'll go back to our December 17.
Good bless.
There's
Bless you.
nothing else happening. I have a question under unanticipated new business, referencing back to the governor's ban on vaping. Did Mark ever swing by to do any inspections on compliance?
He's gonna be in town doing some inspections, I did ask him to, so. Yep, he's gonna,
Like in the next week or so, or?
yeah, pretty soon. And I actually have our final regulations ready for your signatures.
So does that say effective date, January?
January 30th?
30th?
6 copies here.
Well, the minutes say it does.
The regulation says it does.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay. There's 6 copies here. in my-
6 copies. Wow, okay. So should we go on before we start signing?
Go into what?
I just have a couple of other questions.
Okay.
So one was the signage at the ponds, that was continued on our minutes. We said Rich McCarthy was going to look into that, and do we know anything about
Yeah,
that?
so he did talk to the Department of Public Health. So they sent him some, signage stuff. They also sent him an application. You can apply to have the
Testing?
fish tested.
Mm-hmm,
So, so he's working on that.
good. Is that, okay, that's good. And my other thing had to do with the DPW. Were we going to invite them to come in and discuss what they tested for, PCBs specifically, or were we just going to ask for their reports?
So you guys got a copy of their full reports. 'Cause I found the email.
Okay, so we have an email of it?
It was quite, a while ago. I did find it, and you got it, so if you want, I can resend it.
Yeah.
I do it electronically, because I was talking to somebody recently who had been talking to the water department about their actually having data on, for example, PCBs. They'd done some testing, and the metals that we're interested in.
Mhm.
You know, is
Chromium.
arsenic,
Chromium
lead.
6.
Is it chromium is the other
Chromium
one?
6?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we may actually already have some information. In fact, this person recalled that they didn't find any PCBs, and that's not too surprising because they're not soluble. If they're in the
Hmm.
ground someplace, they tend to sit there for pretty much forever, which is a problem. They never go away, and they hardly go away, because they're extremely stable. Anyhow, there is some data out there.
I thought they attached to the solid.
Yeah.
But I guess
I mean,
water
if
is
the-
all
If the solid
filtered.
gets somehow
Yeah.
moved,
Right.
then they'll go with it, but
Yeah.
unless there's something moving that solid around, as long as you don't disturb the solid, you're gonna
Mhm.
have that stuff sitting there for quite a long time. Yeah, one thing I'd never quite figured out in listening to the folks from Lawrence Street is how close that soil was that contained the PCBs to the river's edge. Because they were concerned, I thought, that it could be resuspended by flooding and moved downstream.
Hmm.
But I quite got the idea of what's the chances of that happening. And So, yeah, we have some data. If you don't mind sending them around again, that'd be great.
So those were my only two
That's it?
questions.
Yeah, I read an interesting article regarding a study done in Kentucky on honeybees and honey wax. And they were testing it for pesticides and heavy metals. And these are active bees and going to the hives, and they found lead inside the honeycombs, 5 parts per billion, 5 parts per million. And they actually found DDT in some of the honey. And the DDT was
Really?
Hasn't been
eliminated
used
back
since
in
the 70s?
1950s, right?
1972.
70,
Oh.
yeah.
So.
Well, it was used in the 50s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Like
linger.
Silent Spring was, what, 63?
Yeah, Rachel Carlson, yeah. And so you were talking about it's being stable in the environment, stays in the environment, and our environment is, let's face it, it's dirty around us. If you walk around with a certified lab going to parts per billion, parts per million, you're gonna find a lot of dirt everywhere, no matter where you go.
That's
So
a good
it's-
point.
Yeah, it's just something to, and I was surprised that this is the honey that people eating and stuff. There's a list of pesticides and
Hmm.
metals.
Not surprised.
Okay, thank you.
Any
No, I
new
have,
business?
I have nothing,
No new business. All
no,
right.
no new business at all.
All right.
Other than I will contact Sean Dewey's office about the other invitees to the Stop the Bleed.
Then I should give you each one of these, and then we'll move them along. Oh, there's only 3 of us, okay. So, are we going to continue the meeting, or? are we done?
Continue this meeting.
Yeah.
This meeting?
Need a black pen?
Are we done?
Continue or
I have a
adjourn?
blue one.
Adjourn. I mean, before we sit here and sign,
We signed this during the meeting.
oh, we have to sign them during the meeting.
Thank you.
Is
It won't
black
take us
pen
long.
appropriate?
Okay.
Black is appropriate?
Black is always.
Well, or blue, I mean, somebody's gonna have to sign stuff in blue. Black is okay? All right.
Death certificates, they require black pens.
This is very true.
Specific black ink. If you do it in
Although
the
we
other
don't-
ink,
we
they'll
don't
kick
s-
it back.
We don't sign those anymore, it's all done electronically.
Oh, really? Don't you fill it out
Huh?
electronically too? You
The
fill it
burial
out?
permits, yeah.
Black is always appropriate.
So
That's so cute.
you type it in. Does it go directly to the State Department? Wow. So it's in the certificate.
Oh, I should have done that, sorry.
Brandy's is-
How many copies do we have?
6, she said.
I only got 3.
No.
Okay. So I'll get you some more to
It's all
sign.
done through the state title.
Statistics.
Yeah.
Oh, because everything's mailed to them. There's no copies here.
Ooh, sorry. Can you just check and make sure those have, the ones that I just gave you have signatures?
That one's done.
Okay. Okay.
All right. There's nothing else going on right now. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn the meeting, the Board of Health meeting, October 22nd, 2019, at 8:52 PM.
Is there
I
a
second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Alright.